Hi, folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast. This is session number 407. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Hello, welcome back. Sorry if you're watching on YouTube for the stupid lockdown hair thing that's going on. It's being fixed today, but given that I'm recording two Tops and Tails podcasts this morning, you'll see this next week as well. So apologies that you have to endure that, but I'm going for the sort of Bridgerton sideys, but without really pulling it off. Okay, today I bring back repeat guest and protection industry legend Tom Bagree of LifeSearch to discuss various topics in the whole protection vein. After the main body of the show, as usual, I'll look at a recent review that have been left, and that's what we're going to be talking about next time, all that usual stuff. But as ever, remember, this podcast continues to be brought to you by my friends at Seven Investment Management. I shouldn't say by them, with the kind help of Seven Investment Management. They've been helping me out here for ages now. So please do check out what they're up to. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. Certainly couldn't have got this far without their help, for sure. Now, it's always good to chat with Tom Bagree. Clearly, the man knows his onions when it comes to protection and the insurance industry. He's built what I think is the largest protection advice company in the UK. But not only that, it's a company which is renowned for its culture, its positive culture, the good that it does as a company, the way it looks after its staff and its customers, of course. And that's a rare thing indeed in the personal finance world. So it's always good to talk with Tom, and he and I talk about the impact of coronavirus on insurers, whether things might return to normal, what that might look like. We cover whether arguably it's more important than ever for folks in middle age to consider life insurance, given that the disproportionate impact that COVID has had on folks in middle age and above. Stay tuned at the end for a special deal that I got going with LifeSearch for Meaningful Money listeners. If you're considering life insurance or income protection insurance, stay tuned for that. That's after the show. And of course, remember, notes and links from today's show are at the show notes, which is the only link you need to remember. That's meaningfulmoney.tv/session407, meaningfulmoney.tv/session407. Here's my conversation with Tom Bagree of LifeSearch. Once again, it's great to have my friend Tom Bagree, CEO of LifeSearch, back on the show to talk about protection. Tom, how are you doing? I hope you're keeping well in the madness.
Yes, very well. My wife just came back with a negative COVID test this morning.
Wow. Okay.
Having been for one yesterday, having bumped into someone who has tested positive a few days ago. So surviving, Pete, surviving okay, yeah.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Obviously, you're in London, so it's been pretty rough for you guys for a long time.
Yeah, we've got used to it now, I think. But actually, we're not going out for walks at the moment because the parks are so crowded.
Oh, really?
We figured, well, we a friend of a friend in the NHS on the WhatsApp, was saying, please don't go out because, it's spreading there now. Well, it always does, I suppose, always has, I don't know. And so Yeah,
you don't want to be in places with lots of people.
The rowing machine in the spare room has been dusted off and is being beaten up regularly.
So, well, we went from tier 1 to tier 3 in the space of a week over Christmas down here in Cornwall. So it's obviously now it's full lockdown again, and here we are. But obviously we spoke back in May 2020, and I think perhaps we might have thought we'd be in a different situation by now, but maybe not. But I just wondered how you and the team at LifeSearch have weathered the past few months.
Well, I can't remember what I said in May 2020, but you've probably heard, lots of vogue talk these days about businesses that are culture-driven or values-driven. And the honest truth, Pete, is that we've been one of those, I guess, officially since 2012. But before that, since 2002, we had a simple ethos of customer first, people second, profits third, because in financial services, that is the right way to run a business in the long term. It makes sense at every level. And that approach pays off when times get tough. They have several times since 2002, not as tough as this. But because we've been one of those, because our values are tolerance and care, or include those, we were able to cope very easily because we'd already empowered our customer-facing people to work from home or the office as they needed or wanted to in their lives. And we are incredibly lucky in what we do. We don't need people to gather. You and I could have started restaurants or leisure businesses, exactly. And no amount of culture and values would have seen us through this in those.
Exactly, lots to be grateful for.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's it's these are difficult words, but with death and disability now a much more real factor in our world for those of us of working age. We're all forced to think about these things more, and that's seen many more consumers becoming customers over the last year.
Yeah, we've seen much the same, and I think a lot of advisory firms have as well. People with more time on their hands, but also something such as this, completely unexpected, really does throw our finances into sharp relief very often and makes us think about them in more detail. It's like, you don't think about your health, do you, until you have a sort of sharp pain in your chest very often, and it's this sort of thing has definitely focused people's minds. Obviously, LifeSearch being an advisory firm in the protection market, you deal with lots of providers, insurers, in that whole market. I wonder what their experience has been, from your point of view. How has it impacted them, and obviously in turn then their customers?
Yeah, we're a relative rarity, Pete, in that we're a whole of market advisor. There isn't an insurer really available to the UK consumer that we don't deal with. But that's in times like this, that's a very good thing, because although initially quite a few couldn't work from home, they didn't have the capacity, so they were sort of shut for a while. For a few days or weeks at most. But they fixed that smartly, and it is a highly competitive market, so we could always place risk somewhere. But overall, the reinsurers and insurers, I think, have been pretty brave. They've held the line. A fair few took steps to reduce their exposure to older people or those with existing medical conditions without being explicit about it, just by stopping the screening tests that, the reason was to stop or reduce COVID transmission risk. But those tests form a routine part of underwriting older people who are slightly more at risk. Mm-hmm. And we don't think the cessation of screening is an honest way of the insurer reducing their risk, because screenings can be done remotely now.
Right.
So that was a tactic which we didn't approve of. But overall, the market has responded very well. And after all, like us, their business is brisk. Mm. So they're not doing badly at all. There has also been a good trend that's been accelerated by increased awareness, and that's something I would have talked of last time, because I've been talking about it for quite a while now. Signposting, which is our word for the redirection of clients by generalists, financial advisors and others, accountants, solicitors, whoever, to specialists who can actually help those customers. And we get lots of inquiries now saying, so-and-so sent me to you. And that's, I think, a sign of increasing professionalism in a market. After all, it's standard practice in medicine and
sure.
law, and it should be in financial services too. It's a coming thing.
Do you think that this whole crisis will lead to lasting change in the protection market? Do you think, we've heard talk about, acceleration in home working, digital conferencing technology, that really being accelerated, pushed forward by necessity. Do you think that this whole thing has led to similar sorts of positive changes or acceleration in the pace of change in the protection world as a whole?
Yes. I hope the big winner will be income protection, disability insurance, that is. The stuff that pays out if you can't work through disability, no matter how that's caused. That risk is one that people often pretend to have a coping strategy for. That one says, I can live with my parents, my sister will look after us, my mum can manage the kids. Those coping strategies are being thought through a bit more these days, I think, and found to be wanting, which reveals the need for an income protection policy. So I think that's more a change in consumer mindset that I hope will be reinforced, will grow because the disability insurance market in the UK is well, not enough people have that cover, that's for sure. I then think in terms of the actual business world itself, I think the online and automated trading, if you like, I think the best word is simply digital. Digital trading in terms of both giving advice, effecting advice, and servicing customers will become ever more important. It's already heading that way. That will mean consolidation, I think, in the distributor market, and that in turn will do the same thing to insurers. I mean, I'm talking over years here, not months. And that means essentially fewer bigger businesses doing things better while trying to maintain the personal touch. It's possible. It's more or less my life's work, actually. But I do see that that as being the trend, and LifeSearch itself is certainly fully focused on what we call digital transformation. But the trick is to put the customer right. Well, everyone says I would put the customer at the heart of what we do. No, the customer has to be just up front and central as one's guiding light. That's where one is going. If you're not going to the customer, you're going in the wrong direction. But the things that matter to consumers and customers, the super high claims paid rates, I mean, they're up in the 90s, 90%.
Brilliant.
Low cost policies. Our average customer spends about close to £25 a month in total. And that can include life and disability cover. Though for your listener base, maybe a little older and a little richer, but the costs are obviously proportionate.
Sure.
But I think ease of access to insurance will become a constant, or can one have such a thing as an improving constant?
I guess so.
But anyway,
Something can constantly
will
improve.
continue to improve through signposting and through the general maturing of the profession, I think, as we continue to move away from being salespeople to being professionals.
You mentioned coping strategies. Income protection is the least understood, the least taken up of the protection policies, at least in my experience. And you mentioned that people, perhaps that's the case because people have coping strategies which have been found wanting. I wonder if you can speak a little bit more about that and just what you mean by that.
Well, everyone insures their house, their car, obviously the car because they have to, but also their phones, their gadgets, these things are done. But then when you look at the source of all of those things, it is your income. And the source of your income is your mental and physical well-being. And when that goes wrong, then the whole world falls apart pretty much immediately. You can't earn, and your problems mount up. And particularly if your issues, your disability is mental in some respect, then you're in a spiraling situation, which is very hard to control. The solution to that is a monthly income, simple, and people will get that. I mean, no one listening to me will go, "Oh, that's nonsense." But what do people do about it? They say, well, it's very unlikely. It isn't. It's about 6 or 7 times more likely than death during your working years. And that's long term. That's more than 6 months off. Or they'll say, I've got a bit of reserve. Yeah, you have for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. But the situation could be graver than that. Or they say, look at the people around me. My kids are off my hands. They can look after themselves. No, they're going to have to look after you. So at the moment you apply cold logic to almost all coping strategies, except for the very wealthy who can self-insure, then they fall apart. And then people go, well, hang on, it's very expensive. I can't afford it. And then the truth is, if you can't afford it, then you really, really need it.
Yeah,
that's an absolute acid test. Yeah. And you can afford it. It doesn't cost very much. So you can buy the most expensive policies, or you can buy policies that cost much less and still do a job, or balance the two. That's the advisor's role, is to look at your budget and look at what's out there and try and find the right solution for you and your family.
Yeah, no, it's good. I know many of the people who have reported back to me who have come to LifeSearch as a result of our connection very often surprised at how little they end up paying, actually. And that, of course, is the benefit of a whole of market advisor. And but yeah, it's so often the case, the unknown is often worse than once you actually know what it is. You think, oh, okay, it's only equivalent to my Sky subscription, or probably less than a lot of people's Sky subscription, or whatever. So it's true. That's a great acid test. If you think you can't afford the insurance, then you need you need it. I'm definitely going to be stealing that line, I think.
It's way less than my size Sky subscription, because I've added all the sports channels to give me something to watch, and wow, they rip you off for those ones. They know they've got you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah. So I keep sort of I get subscription creep. So before you know it's Sky, and then it's Netflix, and then it's Disney Plus. Even though my youngest is nearly 18, I'm not quite sure how that happened, but anyway, here we are. So the coronavirus crisis, I think it's fairly well documented that it's disproportionately affected, as well as ethnic minorities and things like that. Definitely affected middle-aged and older folks more so than younger folks. And of course, many people in that age bracket, may have paid off their mortgage, kids may have flown the nest or whatever, and so may not see quite so much need for life insurance than perhaps somebody in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. So would you say that folks over the age of 50 should consider life insurance specifically, perhaps more than they might have done before all this happened?
I'm not sure. If you're working, as we've just said, you need disability insurance no matter your age. Only those decumulating, in the jargon, only those spending it, not making it, don't need that. But if your dependents won't be much worse off financially with you dead, then you don't need life insurance, really. Full stop. That's doesn't matter your age. Unless you want to use it to pay inheritance tax, which can be a very cost-effective way of protecting your estate in a world of long-term low interest rates, which maybe we should talk more about one day.
Yeah.
But the question you should ask is simply, will my dependents be in financial trouble if I die? The answer is yes, then you need life insurance. But the question that's much more likely to yield a yes amongst people in their 50s and 60s, unless, as I say, they are so rich that they can self-insure, is can my dependents afford to look after me? Do I have enough wealth to insulate them from serious loss should they have to see me through illness long term? Be that a cancer or well, I guess long-term COVID now maybe, but just mental illness or any other form of disability. If the answer to that is no, that they can't afford to do that, I haven't got the money to insulate against that, then you need to consider critical illness and income protection, even if you don't perhaps need to consider life insurance.
Yeah, sure. It's about quantifying the risk, isn't it? And I think sometimes just taking the time to think through the consequences objectively, that's not easy, is it? But it's something I try to preach. It's like just almost a thought experiment. If you couldn't work from now on, what would the impact of that be? How long would your money last? And things like that. I think it's just making the time and being intentional about considering the risks objectively. Not easy, though.
Well, I think, to be honest, that's what advisors are for.
Yeah, sure.
You need a specialist protection advisor to walk you through that. But my team do that all day, every day, sure. And they just trigger questions and probing questions, which lead to relatively straightforward answers very quickly.
Yeah, cool. I think you and I definitely need to have a conversation in the future about business protection, because a lot of business owners listen to the show, so we'll definitely return to that before too long. But obviously businesses have been sort of hard hit in all this, as have individuals. I wonder if employers offering things like income protection, perhaps critical illness, to their staff might become more of a thing in future than it is now. Do you think that might become perhaps a differentiator, almost an incentive that more employers might offer in future, now that we're all just more aware of our mortality?
Yes, I expect it will be. I think most businesses are still a bit shell-shocked, but certainly we are getting a lot more business protection, and group risk is what you were just talking about there. So that's the jargon for it. Group risk inquiries than ever before. In part, that's because we've grown substantially in those markets, but there is an increased sensitivity. A key advantage of grouping together, which is generally done through your employment, is that if, say, there are 20 of you in the company and one or even two or more have a condition which means they couldn't get disability cover or life insurance or whatever, then by applying as a group, they don't get asked any questions. The insurers take on the mass of the risk, if you like, without looking at the individuals specifically, unless those individuals are hugely disproportionate earners to the rest, when obviously they would do. So that is something an employer could well look to as a valuable benefit to give a team. Because in any team, there will be some who have physical or mental health conditions, and this could really help those. It's also much more cost effective and much simpler. It doesn't really stop individuals needing to take responsibility for their own assessment, because it's quite probable the employer's cover won't be as comprehensive as one might want for oneself. But yes, I think the trend is increasing slightly, and I think it will become more prevalent, simply because, as you say, it's in everybody's mind's eye right now.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? And I always suggest that people trigger a review of their protection program if they leave employers as well, if they change employers, because
yes, that's vital.
It might be that something is offered at the new place that wasn't in the old, or vice versa. And it's always good to have a baseline set of personal protection, I think, as well, which stays with you no matter who you're working for. But we'll definitely return to that subject, I think, Tom. But I wonder if you could offer one piece of advice to anybody now just thinking, as we start to return to normal, hopefully, I really do need to look at this in case something like this happens again, or in case my mental health suffers to the point that I can't work, or in case I'm hit by a car or whatever. Somebody who's thinking about reviewing things, would you offer one piece of advice to them, please?
Yeah, I'd say do it properly. It's not like car insurance or insuring your pet. It's easy to buy the wrong thing for you. So take advice. It costs nothing more, and it will ensure you get a balance of cover that is right for you. Far too many people fall for nice salespeople who seem to give advice while saying quite clearly that they don't. That's actually a simple regulatory loophole. Yeah. That means if things do go wrong, if what you were sold turns out to not pay out or be wrong for you, the customer has little or no recourse to the ombudsman for compensation, which means the nice phone salesperson can sell you whatever they like. And many customers end up being misled and complaining, frankly, complaining to no one, after believing that the sales pitch they were getting was advice. If someone says they're not giving you advice, believe them and put the phone down and call LifeSearch immediately.
Yeah, absolutely agree. My final question was going to be, where can people find out more about Alpha?
Forgive me, I've jumped the gun.
No, absolutely. No, you're dead right. Because as many folks will know, I've had an arrangement with LifeSearch for the past, it's coming 2 years, I think. It may even be slightly more than that. And I mean, many listeners to this show have gone through my link to LifeSearch, meaningfulmoney.tv/LifeSearch, and I've had a fantastic experience. So, Tom, you mentioned right at the start about culture, and I think a lot of firms talk about that, and very few actually walk it, and LifeSearch is definitely a beacon in that regard. The response and the feedback that I get from people, listeners of mine, who have come to LifeSearch has been uniformly positive. So thank you for honouring your promises in that regard. And once again, mate, thank you for your time. I appreciate all you're doing and appreciate your input and your insights into what's going on at the minute.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for those lovely words. You bring a tear to an old man's eye, mate. That's lovely to hear. Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that. My thanks again to Tom Bakery for his time and his insights. Don't forget, I've got a special deal with LifeSearch. So if you head over to meaningfulmoney.tv/LifeSearch, sometimes that's hard to say, meaningfulmoney.tv/LifeSearch. You end up on a special landing page at the LifeSearch site, and there's a number on there that takes you straight through to their senior advice team. Now, it's an affiliate arrangement, so full disclosure, if you sign up to any policies with them, Meaningful Money gets a cut of the commission. Doesn't cost you anymore, though, of course, and obviously it helps the channel to keep going. LifeSearch have got a brilliant reputation for really, really good advice, zero sales pressure, any of that. Everybody that's fed back to me who has gone to them for advice has had nothing but good things to say. So if you've got questions about your current life cover, whether you should consider alternatives, definitely check them out. meaningfulmoney.tv/lifesearch. Okay, here's a review titled The Best Ever Finance Podcast by Iniga1 from Australia. Nice one. Although I live down under in tropical northern Australia, I've been an avid listener of Pete's podcast for several years now. I've learned so much to help my family and me with our finances. I've listened to quite a few different podcasts on financial well-being over time, but Meaningful Money wins hands down, not only by way of a rich array of topics from A to Z to cover life's journeying in managing one's money, but also Pete's unique gift with his delivery to us all. Thank you very much. An amazing personable approach has him sitting there right next to us in conversation during each and every episode. Keep on being you, Pete, in what you do and the way you say it. It's a Gold Star award, and a huge thank you, mate, from me. Iniga1, thank you so much. I'm very grateful. You know what's really funny is if ever I end up sort of speaking one-on-one, perhaps somebody approaches me for personal advice and jump on a Zoom call, and they're just like, it's really weird. It's like a live version of the podcast, and I suppose it is. But, you know, I'm here in my front room. I am just a normal bloke alongside you, helping you through this stuff. So I'm glad it comes across that way. Iniga1, thank you for leaving a review. If you want to do the same, go to meaningfulmoney.tv/love. Right, meaningfulmoney.tv/love. That's how to leave a review. There's a few different places you can jump off from there. But wherever you're listening to me, if you can leave a rating and a review, please do so. Keeps me near the top of the rankings, helps others to find out about it. Much appreciated. Okay, next time. Great. My good friend and friend of the show, Justin Urquhart Stewart, founder of 7IM. He's back to share his insights into the world economy off the back of COVID-19, and also to talk about his newest venture called Regionally. He's never one to sit still, isn't Justin? The man is supposed to be retired, but no, he's busy as ever. And that is it, folks, for this session of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed my chat with Tom Bakery. Hope it was helpful. Any questions, comments, meaningfulmoney.tv/session407. meaningfulmoney.tv/session407. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.